Good day, everyone. Welcome back to Media and Information Literacy. For our seventh lesson, we will be discussing the different opportunities and challenges in media and information literacy. For today, we will be relating how technology has become such a powerful tool, especially in the use of media and information. We'll also be talking about the influence of media and information on the different aspects of the world, such as on education, economy, politics, and our very own society. Last but not the least, we will be discussing the different threats and controversies involved with the use of technology, media, and information. Before we begin, let us try to go back to how we define technology in our previous lesson. Technology is simply described as our knowledge and utilization of tools, techniques, and systems to serve a bigger purpose like solving problems or making life easier and better. So these are scientific advancements that have the sole purpose of making things easier, better for us. Okay, so it improves the quality of our lives. And there is actually no doubt that technology all throughout the years, all of these developments, all of these advancements have contributed to the success of many different things around us, especially in terms of communication and forming connections and building relationships with and among other people. There is no denying that here in the Philippines, we have become very active users of many different forms of media and technology. For example, in numbers, mobile connections here in the Philippines amount to 138.2% of our population. What does this number mean? It only means that each Filipino citizen actually owns one mobile phone. As for the use of the internet, 67% of our population could access the internet really, whereas 80.7% of our population are considered active social media users. The Philippines is also one of the biggest consumers of media and information in the world. On average, Filipinos spend 10 hours and 56 minutes using the internet across many devices. As for watching television, whether broadcast or streaming, Filipinos spend an average of 3 hours and 30 minutes every day. On social media, it's 4 hours and 15 minutes. In terms of reading, whether online or physical print, Filipinos spend an average of 1 hour and 12 minutes a day. On average, many of us also spend our time listening to music streaming services for 2 hours and 15 minutes each day, 47 minutes spent listening to broadcast radio, 43 minutes spent listening to podcasts, and many Filipinos on average also spend 1 hour and 31 minutes playing video games on a game console. Based on the previous numbers that I have presented, you would notice that many of us Filipinos spend majority of our time accessing online content. So what are some of the activities that we engage in? 99.4% of us watch videos online. 83% watch vlogs or video blogs. 82.2% of internet users age 16 to 64 listen to music streaming services, whereas 49.9% listen to online radio stations. Similarly, 39.1% of internet users also listen to or watch podcasts. That is the reason why we cannot really deny the influence that media and information has on us, because they have been a very vital part of our everyday lives. So now let's try to look at how media and information influence different aspects or facets of the world that we are living in today. Let us first put our focus on media and information influence on education. Before the advent of computers and modern technology, of course, books as sources of information are already there. So many of our students spend time reading on libraries. Back then, students could also enjoy watching educational content on the television. You probably would be familiar with many of these shows while you were growing up. So take for example Sesame Street and Barney, where a lot of Filipino students learned how to speak the English language. We also have local productions such as Bayani, which talked about, of course, the lives of our national heroes here in the country. You have Sinescuela, which was all about science concepts, Mathinic for math concepts, Apple for English concepts. We also have Hiraya Manawari, which helped bring to life many of the folk tales and other indigenous stories that we have. And of course, we have Batibot, which is just like Sesame Street. When computers were made available, the education sector were the first ones to get them and use them for studying. So students now could access computers. Students could access the internet, could perform tasks using the computers in the computer laboratories and schools. Many of our physical media and information resources back then were also digitized. So right now, instead of having full sets and volumes of encyclopedia on our home libraries, we could freely access them on the internet, such as with the Wikipedia, which is a free encyclopedia, Britannica Online, and the Wiley Online Library. And there are a lot more online resources available for students to access. And of course, because of the pandemic, digital and technological literacy has been emphasized, especially for educators. Many educators had to depend on their laptops, on their personal computers, just so they could continue delivering education. Attending online classes and the concepts of synchronous and asynchronous classes have become widely popular, especially at this time and age. So we have used video conferencing platforms, applications, programs, and websites just so we could continue the delivery of education. Learners as well have to depend on their gadgets. There are students who not only learn through the use of their computers, but they could also access educational resources on devices such as the tablet, mobile phones, etc. However, there are, of course, downsides to the use of technology and the computer in education. So, take for example, because of online classes, it has become more difficult for teachers to motivate their students. There is also the problem with information overload. So students might find it difficult to absorb information, to learn information because they are presented and they could easily access so much of it in so little time. Because of the availability of many different kinds of information online, it has also become easier for students to commit plagiarism. So it's very common right now for many students to depend on the works of others that have been published online, sometimes completely copying and pasting their work and claiming it as their own. There is also no denying that since we are exposed to many different kinds of information, we are also vulnerable to many different kinds of disinformation, malinformation, and misinformation. And it's unfortunate that many students fall victim to these kinds of information. Right now, you would notice that many students claim that TikTok videos are credible sources of information, which is not always true. Let us now proceed to the influence of media and information on our economy. Media and information has an economics of its own. And how does this work? In the consumption of media and information, ratings actually matter. So ratings, the higher your ratings are, the higher the revenue is, or the higher the income it would give you. Let us try to define the two terms. Ratings is simply a colloquial term for audience measurement that influence timing, placements, and markets for media content and advertising that determine the number of people who watches, listens to, or reads a particular content. So it's the number of people engaging, trying to interact with the content that you have published online. The higher the number of people watching you, interacting, engaging with your content, the higher your ratings are. Revenue, on the other hand, is of course income generated from specific sale of goods or services or any other use of capital or assets which is often associated with the main operations of an organization before any cost or expenses are deducted. This is the amount of money that is coming into your account because of what you have done, or probably because of what you have sold to the public or what you have given to the consumers. Because of the many improvements in terms of technology and the availability of information online, many of the activities that we used to do physically have also been digitized. So, what does it mean? It means that the things that we used to do physically can now be done online. Take, for example, shopping. So, before, if you want to buy some clothes, you have to go to the mall, you have to go to the physical store to get them. But right now, many different websites, many different platforms could offer the same service without you needing to step outside your homes. This includes online shopping portals such as here in the Philippines, the most famous are Lazada, Shopee, and of course, Zalora. Because of the availability of those platforms, many sellers and many entrepreneurs now venture into online selling. So you would notice that there are also this thing called live selling right now. And because of all of those developments, all of those improvements on the way that we shop, many consumers find it now easier, so much easier to spend money on goods and services. Aside from shopping, of course, there are also other companies that have exploited the power of technology and media and information. This includes companies such as Uber, which does not really have a fleet of cars on its own, but rather uses personal cars to service other people. We also have Airbnbs and the most popular one of all, GrabFood. Before you have to go out, go to a restaurant to take out food. Now you could have that food delivered at your doorstep. So all of these things have made it so much more convenient for consumers to access goods and services. Our banking systems have also improved and developed throughout the years. So, right now, many of the bank transactions that you used to do in the physical bank could already be done on your mobile phones or on your computers. Currently, there are also what we refer to as digital banks, such as ING and CIMB. Electronic wallets or digital cash are also very popular right now. For example, we have PayPal, PayMaya, and Gcash. Many of you probably are also involved in cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. Because of improved means of communication as well, it is now more convenient for many people to work from home. Right now, many different companies, especially big ones such as Google, are considering having work from home setups for their employees, meaning they could accomplish work at the comforts of their own home. There are also other people who have made a living out of the use of media information and technology. Of course, you have your famous vloggers, which have utilized and harnessed the power of followers and likes on different platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and right now, TikTok. These so-called influencers and vloggers have made a lot of money and made this particular activity their main source of income. And just like any other change or improvement in our society, there are also pitfalls to using media and information and technology in our economy. Of course, many people are now vulnerable to hacking. As I have mentioned earlier, it is also easier for people and more convenient for people to spend their money on certain things, certain goods and services. And because of that, many people could develop a habit of online shopping or even splurging on certain things that they do not really need. Just because they saw it on the internet and they think that it's good, they would instantly buy it. This could, of course, lead to shopping addiction in the future. Let us now go to the influence of media and information on our society. Because of the accessibility of computers, mobile phones or smartphones, and of course the internet, there is an abundance right now of many different applications, mobile applications, and different social media platforms to media consumers. These platforms, these applications have enabled easier communication, easier access to information within and among our society as well. It helps strengthen relationships. It even helps build and form connections among the population. Media, information, and technology have also been vital in mobilizing the population. Because of technology, it is easier for us to become more aware of the different issues concerning members of our society. It also becomes easier for us to become advocates for these causes, therefore allowing us to become more active members of our society. Not only that, media, information, and technology have also highlighted the importance of volunteerism and activism in our society. With availability and easy access to different forms of media and technology, it is easy for us to participate in what is happening in the world around us. Many people actually, through media and technology, get to report what is happening, especially the injustices that are happening around them. This is what we could refer to as citizen journalism. It is simply the collection, dissemination, and analysis of news and information by the general public, especially by means of the internet. So when we report things that are happening around us, truthfully and factually, then that could be considered citizen journalism. When we engage in news and information, that is considered citizen journalism. Of course, just like what I have mentioned earlier, there are also pitfalls to these advancements, to these developments. So take for example, because of social media particularly, many people live double lives. So what do we mean by that? The persona that they present real life is very different from the person or the personality that they present on their virtual lives or on their online accounts. There are also a lot of people who make a living out of perpetuating misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation in our society. So they earn a lot of money from trolling other accounts, from creating fake news, from creating divisiveness in our society. It is also known that social media increases societal pressure, particularly among teenagers or the younger generation. Some social media content and online information create unrealistic expectations among people in the society, especially in terms of their physical features and their achievements in life. Let us now proceed to the influence of media and information on politics. Media, information, and technology are all very important in our society and particularly to our government. Why? Because these could be platforms wherein the government could communicate with the people. For example, here in the Philippines, our very own government has their own TV news channel. They also have their very own website wherein people could read all about what's happening in the government, their projects, their platforms, etc. Many government offices all around the world have also harnessed the power of social media through digital diplomacy. So digital diplomacy is the government's use of social media and information technology in order to communicate to the public, especially the foreign public. So take for example, there are embassies all around the world. There are offices, government agencies all around the world that have their own Facebook pages. They have their own Twitter accounts. They have their own Instagram accounts. Some even have TikTok accounts of their own. So not only are they able to communicate with their own citizens, but they also get to inform people living abroad, people living in other places. The public servants, especially those who hold positions in our government, are also active on social media. So they have their own Twitter accounts, they have their Facebook accounts, and of course, they have their TikTok accounts. Media and technology have also been critical, especially in the information dissemination relating to election matters. A lot of those running for seats or positions in the government also harness the power that social media has. But of course, it is not one without any issues or without any problems. Many different media outlets have also fallen victim to harassment from their very own government. It's not only happening here in the Philippines, but it also happens even abroad. So take for example, when they tried to revoke the license of Rappler, an online news outlet here in the Philippines, and also when they shut down one of the biggest broadcasting companies here in the Philippines for allegedly failing to pay taxes. Politics is also one of the main reasons why there is a propagation of fake news here and abroad. Aside from those downfalls and pitfalls, there are also several threats and controversies related to media and information. For example, stereotyping is very rampant in different media formats. Stereotyping is simply defined as the process of labeling an entire group according to the characteristics of some. Like for example, in movies, there are still a lot of stereotypes that are being presented even at this age and time. For example, the concept or the stereotype of the dumb blondes. Another issue is the issue with gender roles or the presentation of gender roles in media. This issue stems from the depiction of sexist elements in media content. So take for example in advertisements related to home products, you would often see women in those product advertisements instead of men because many still believe that the role of women in our society is confined at the home. Of course, there's also racial profiling and discrimination. So it's basically disinformation and hate speech targeting diverse population segments, black, people of color, etc. Another threat and controversy in the subject of media and information is the conflict of interest. It is inevitable for media personalities to get involved in other endeavors. However, sometimes there is conflict with what they do and what they want to do or what they want to accomplish. Now, these situations in which professional, personal, and or financial obligations or interests compete, especially with the journalist's responsibility to his outlet and audience, is called or referred to as conflict of interest. So this is very particular to media personalities who has that particular responsibilities to be factual, to be truthful to their audience. One very good example of this one is when Nolly De Castro had to step down as a host or as one of the major reporters on TV Patrol when he ran for the vice presidential office many, many years ago. Accountability is also very essential, not only for consumers or users of media, information, and technology, but also for creators of different media outputs. So, accountability simply involves self regulation by remembering and respecting oneself, peers, sources, people, involved in the news, towards media users, and towards the community where they operate. Another threat to free press is censorship. Censorship is described as any attempt to limit, suppress, or prevent the free exchange of information, ideas, or artistic expression. This is usually conducted by the government itself. So take for example what's happening in Russia right now. Many different news outlets that are reporting about the war between Russia and Ukraine are being shut down or being censored, being asked not to talk about what is happening. Here are my sources and references for this topic. Thank you for joining me.